Hi, I'm Marlon Pedrosa with eXp Realty up here in Las Vegas, Nevada, and we want to thank you for choosing us for your real estate needs. We prepared this video for our clients so they better understand the documents we use. And while we don't review every section of the document, we do try and clear up some of the most relevant concerns. We're recording this video in May of 2022, and if you're watching long after that date, there are likely changes that have taken place in this document, and this video may have some parts that are outdated. Also know that we operate in Southern Nevada and is more specific to our market. While you may be able to glean some value from this video, please know that no two markets operate exactly alike. And finally, I need you to know that I'm not an attorney, and none of what I'm saying should be interpreted as legal advice. So for the listing agreement, this is the document we use with sellers to have them authorize us to put their house on the market for sale, and is provided by our local board of realtors, the Las Vegas Realtors. And let's just get right into it. So the title is kind of interesting and a little more elaborate. So it says exclusive authorization and right to sell, exchange, or lease brokerage listing agreement. Then you see the one in parentheses ER, that stands for exclusive rights. Below that is a disclaimer basically saying this is a legally binding contract, and that if you want to seek tax advice, by all means do through your tax advisor or legal advice from your attorney. Now let's get right into the document. We start filling it out, and this is the names of the sellers, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner. This is our brokerage, eXp Realty. It's important to note that this document is an agreement between the sellers and the brokers. The brokerage owns the listing. I'm merely the assigned agent to the listing, but my broker is in fact in charge of this. Now we're listing this one for a period of 6 months. That's my standard practice, and I don't like to list for anything less than 6 months, but this is negotiable. So the city is the city of Las Vegas, the county of Clark, and here's the tax ID number of the property, and finally the address of the property we're putting on the market right here. Next is the terms of the sale. We're listing this property for is $500,000, just for an example, just like what we talked about. And we're asking that the buyers provide an earnest money deposit of $5,000. In this case, I kind of like the number somewhere between 1 and 2% of the purchase price. That is my own, and that is my own personal practice. And again, all is negotiable though. So then after that, that we have the terms that we can accept cash, conventional, FHA, or VA. So you could also decide if you want to lease it. You could lease it, or if you want to lease option, you can do that here as well. So here we are asking the seller if it's okay if we disclose the existence of multiple offers. In some cases, you might not want to do that on very special circumstances, I suppose, but I like to be able to do that to hopefully have buyers compete for your property when we get it on the market, and we love it when that happens. We would normally disclose the existence of multiple offers, but we would never ever disclose the actual terms of those offers. I think that would be a mistake to do so. And the next line also asks if we can disclose the offers, price and terms. Again, in some cases you might not want to do that on very special circumstances. So property offered for sale, the following items of personal property are included. Now, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, are there any personal items included with the sale of this home? So in this case, like the refrigerator, washer, and dryer, these are 3 appliances that are not normally considered part of the sale, but very often buyers like it when they're there. So as a seller, you have a decision to make at this point. If you do want to offer them for sale, they still become negotiable in the terms of the deal, but it's this question: do you want to even offer them? So right after that is that if you want to exclude, in this case, like some garage, a storage rack, or a chandelier that you like. I don't really like to do that, but every now and then we don't have a choice. So I prefer my sellers remove anything that they would like to exempt before we go to the market. So I just hate for the buyers to fall in love with the storage racks your wife gave you, and there's a dispute over that as we go through the transaction. So normally a seller says, gee, I want to take this storage rack with me because my wife gave it to me, and I say, hey, let's take it out and store it somewhere else. And next one says, if your home contains a smart technology, especially with newer homes right now, or even older homes but had someone installed a smart technology to make life easier. And in this case, it does contain any smart technology. And at the bottom of this page, you're going to see there's a place for sellers to initial. So there are also that on the bottom of page 1, as there's on the bottom of every page. So you want you to initial there, and then there is some other spots in the agreement where you're going to be initialing as well, and we will see that in a couple of pages. Next, we have items that are leased. This is really important part of the document. So in this case, like the seller has to let me know that they have a solar panel system that's leased. We want to make sure that we're aware whatever it is in your home that you don't actually own. If you lease it, we need to let the buyer know that it is your intention to sell them in the home, but we need them to assume that lease. So very often in a case like this, when I see the solar panel system is somewhat that's leased, I'm gonna actually, right after this, after we sign this document, when I get ready to take it to the market, I'm going to prepare a counter offer and include the idea that the solar panel system should be a lease that should be accepted. It's not being given to the buyer outright, because in the residential purchase agreement it says that all the items provided would be free of liens. In this case, it's not. So the solar panel system is leased, so we want to make sure we disclose that to the buyer and ask them to assume that lease. Title insurance would of course be provided. They're telling that you have to provide the title insurance to the buyer, which you will do. Compensation to the broker. This is my favorite part of the of this document. In this case, I'm asking the seller to provide me with 6% of the sale price, and I'm giving half or whatever we decide of that to whatever agent or brokerage brings your buyer to the table. So if there was a lease, we would fill in some terms here, but we're not doing that, so we'll just put NA. This whole section about compensation basically says we get paid if we sell the home, but there's a variety of other ways we might get paid. If a seller, not that you would ever do this, if a seller decided there was some unscrupulous way they could steal a commission from us, a lot of that's dealt with in this section, but I'm not going to go through the details of this because I know you would never do that. But if you're curious about it, by all means read this section with compensation shall be due. So we are authorized to accept a deposit on your behalf, and we're normally going to have that deposit right in the escrow. So we rarely going to see that money ourselves anyway. Agency relationship. Now this basically says that we could represent you, or we could essentially represent both sides of the party. If we were representing both sides, we would have to complete what's called a consent to act. You would have to be made aware of that, and you'd have to approve of it. You have to say, yeah, that's okay. As what I have said earlier, you're going to do to be initialing some spots that's not at the bottom, like here, that you received the residential disclosure guide, which is a document provided to everyone doing a transaction here in the state of Nevada. You're also going to be filling out disclosures as a seller, and in that case it would be a seller's real property disclosure. You would also be filling out a construction defect of claim, should there be any, and if the house is built prior to 1978, you're going to complete a lead-based paint disclosure as well. Section 9, you're indemnifying us for many knowledges we don't have specifically. So we have a duty to share material facts. Now, if you are aware of these things, you need to let us know. And please do. If we don't know those things, we can't be held accountable for that one. So fair housing in this section talks about the idea where we can't discriminate. And there's a variety of ways we're not allowed to discriminate. All of these ways are right here. So race, color, and etc. And a common interest community. This is the HOA. You might have multiple HOAs. You might have an HOA, and you might also have a master association. So you're going to let us know what you're paying per month, or if it's quarterly payment. So you can also give us the phone numbers of those associations so that we can share this information with the buyer when we do get to your buyer. Special assessments. If you have a SID or a LID, we would disclose that here. So we would want to know about it, and we would want to know what your current balance is and what you are actually paying. Usually a semi-annual payment on that. So now I usually research this in advance before coming to see you, and I have this filled out for you based on what it says online. This is the lockbox, the key box section. Here the seller's authorizing us to use a key box, an electronic box. So these boxes are terrific. It identifies who was there, when they were there, and they are only accessed by people who are supposed to have that access. And in section E of this, we're asking you to authorize us to hand out 1-day codes. Now, I would never give out a 1-day code to anyone who wasn't a licensed professional, and I don't, as a common practice, give out 1-day codes to other realtors for that matter, because those people should already have access through their phones or through their key cards, if that still exists. And if they do not have that access, there's something wrong, and the reason that they don't have it is because they don't have it. So I'm not going to give them a 1-day code, but I would give, if you said, hey, I want to get that plumber in, so I would be happy to provide them with a 1-day code so they can use the key to access the property. And it's also saying that we're not insuring you against a theft here, but you're not going to hold us accountable if somebody misused this. So you do have to be somewhat prudent about your choices, and don't leave anything valuable out when you list your home. Don't make it easy for somebody. Sometimes the children are coming with their family to look at the property, and they might do things that they're not supposed to do. All right. So the next line says if the property is currently occupied by a tenant, and in this case it is not. So, and if it is a tenant occupied property, this is where you put the property manager's contact info, and the seller may not rent or lease the property during the term of this agreement, without 14 days prior written notice to the broker. That's the tax withholding. If you're a foreign national, we have to abide by the laws related to FIRPTA. So if you're a foreign national, we would need to know that here. So again, the seller's initials right here. And mediation, should there be any dispute, you agree to mediate first. That's what it basically says. On multiple listing, you understand that we're going to use the multiple listing service to market your property. That's how we share it with all the other realtors. And we're going to be advertising your home in a variety of methods. We're going to be using photographs, and if you provide us with photographs, when you give us those photographs, you're authorizing us to use them to market your property, and you are basically giving us license to use them. And you initial right here. Here you authorize us to use the sign, and some people might be uncomfortable on that sign. That's fine. If you don't want a yard sign, tell us so. you will change that to no sign. But also know that we never know exactly which method is going to work in terms of getting your home sold. So I'd like to put a sign in the yard. Sometimes people drive the neighborhood and fall in love with the house just from where it is, and so a sign, it is always helpful. Here in section 20 talks about seller opt-outs. Basically this is if you don't want your home on the internet, or if you don't want the internet at all, or you just don't want any commentary about it on the internet, or maybe you don't want any automated estimate of values on it. I'm going to discourage my sellers from opting out of any of this, and ask you to initial right here where they say they do not want to opt out of any of the above. And I'm going to do that because the internet is a valuable tool used to market your property, and we'd like to use it as much as we possibly can. So the use of the listing content, we're going to use in a variety of ways in a variety of media. This contract is written in Nevada under Nevada law. Okay, and the entire contract means what was written is what counts. So what we're saying by way of explanation doesn't necessarily count, and any changes to the agreement need to be made in writing. So if part of the contract was deemed invalid, it would not invalidate the whole thing. And if there's a lawsuit, basically what it says is saying is that the loser is going to cover everybody's attorney's fees. Damages cap, basically what this says is that if you are to sue for damages from the broker, the most you could really get from the broker would be the commission. So warranty of ownership, by signing this agreement, you're saying, yeah, you're the owner and you authorize us to do this. Foreclosure section. So this whole section talks about foreclosure. If you are in danger of foreclosure as you enter this agreement, please let us know about that, and let's mark this appropriately, because that creates timelines that we want to make sure we adhere to. So we don't want to put you in a position where where we get under contract, but we don't close in time to interrupt the foreclosure and get the home sold before the bank concludes the foreclosure. The signature section talks about the idea that the electronic signatures are okay. So fax signatures are okay too, if they still exist. And recommendations, if you recommend somebody to you, or if I recommend somebody to you to use, is because they served my clients in the past and had done well. If they don't take good care of you, I want to know about it, so I won't recommend them in the future. And I'm not receiving any compensation from them, however. And you should investigate them yourself. Make sure that you're comfortable with them, even though we recommend them. They may not be right for you. So if you were to default the broker, it could essentially sue you for the commission. So it is a possibility. Again, I have never been involved with that. So binding effect is basically that this contract is binding to you and your heirs. So next one would be the joint and several to you, and it's joint and several to you and your partner, or both joint and severally responsible. And time is of the essence, pretty understandable. And here you choose the MLS status, if it shall be once an offer has been accepted. And in this case, the property will not be shown once an offer has been accepted. And if you're doing a 1031 exchange, you check the appropriate box, but seller agrees to hold a broker harmless from any claims and other costs and liabilities. But here we are not doing a 1031 exchange. Additional terms in this case is none. If there is some, you put some additional terms right there. But and now we're going to see some bold capitalized letters. and it says it's a very important document, and make sure you understand it. So make sure that if you want to seek legal advice, then you do so. So now here's where you're going to sign. You're going to be signing here and here. And it's also important to know that this email address is really critical. Now, this is the email address we're going to use to update you throughout the process, and this is the phone number of we're going to use to update you as well. And maybe this is the phone number we're going to share multiple lists to make appointments to see your property. This address may not be the home address. You might be living somewhere else right now, or maybe you have already moved, or maybe not. It might be the same address. If not, this is where we're going to be sending the materials to once we get you sold. Next page, then the bottom is where identifies us, our brokerage. Now this is where I am going to sign as the designated licensee. That my broker is going to sign right here, and once the broker signs, it is a binding agreement, and you are going to initial at the bottom of this page. And on this final page, here is all of the areas which were not allowed to discriminate, all the various laws related to discrimination. Now you are also to initial inside of these boxes, right over here. And that's our listing agreement, and I hope this was helpful to you. If you have any questions, reach out to us and we are happy to help. I hope this was informative for you. I hope you found this video helpful. Feel free to review our other videos at www.marlonepedrosa.com. Once again, thanks for choosing Marlone Pedrosa with eXp Realty for your real estate needs. And if you ever have any questions, just call or text 702-354-3262.